Hey there, it's Melissa of Kaelin, the founder of the Michigan Aurora Chasers and author of Below the 45th Parallel, the Beginner's Guide to Chasing the Aurora in the Great Lakes region. Now we're going old school today. We're going to bring it on back. And I've pulled up a map here available from the Library of Congress. You can see this is sort of an old world map, but we're going back to geography class. Remember grade school when you talked about meridians and parallels, latitude and longitude? Well, those lines are all of a sudden going to be important again because latitude runs east to west across the globe or west to east, and your longitude runs north to south along the globe. Now, the northern lights filter into our atmosphere through the North Pole, and then they push farther south the stronger they get. Or if you're searching for the southern lights or the aurora australis, those filter in through the South Pole and then push farther north, depending how strong they get. So look, our latitudes become very important. Obviously, 0 degrees is the equator that splits the globe in half. And as you go farther north, that describes how close you're getting to the North Pole and how far you're getting from the equator. The opposite is true. As you go farther south, you get closer to the South Pole and farther from the equator to the south. So let's dive in. How does this shake out when you're talking about chasing northern lights? Well, the KP index or the K index tells us about geomagnetic activity and how strong it is. It strongly correlates to aurora activity as well. The KP index, if you've been watching my YouTube channel, is a scale of 0 to 9, 9 being the strongest, pushes the northern lights the farthest south, and 0 being the weakest. That's usually only visible from the North Pole, or KP1 visible up in the polar regions of the world. But once we reach KP3, all of a sudden, those latitude lines bring the aurora all the way down into southern Canada. Once we reach KP4, it pushes even farther south in between these lines here. KP5 will bring aurora down to the 45th parallel. And as that K index gets stronger, the aurora keep pushing farther south. So you can use a KP map to determine what you need to see aurora anywhere in the world. Let's zoom in a little bit closer. I live in the Great Lakes region, which I dearly love, and you can kind of see using specific maps from around the world how it shakes out in your area. So we can see here the 49th parallel is way up north of Lake Superior's North Shore. The 47th parallel starts to touch the lower 48 states of the US, which is where I'm aurora chasing. So that will actually bring aurora into Michigan's Upper Peninsula, especially the Keweenaw Peninsula, this little tip here at the top. And it will give you a fairly good show as long as other conditions align. The 46th parallel also actually runs right through the middle here. So that brings aurora at a K4 into these areas. And the 45th parallel is a magical latitude, in my opinion, because at the 45th parallel, we really start to see a lot of changes. We start to see more vegetation that is known for being up north. We see the boreal forests begin to fill out. We see some of those wildlife creatures that live in more northern areas, and we start to see more of the northern climate, those really cold, brisk winters that are known for their crisp displays of northern lights. All of that starts to happen as you get to the 45th parallel and farther north. So I consider that sort of a magical place on the map where anything can happen. And at the 45th parallel too, all you need is to see a K5 on the K index to see aurora reach about halfway into the sky overhead. We're talking visible northern lights. That is equivalent to a G1 storm or a geomagnetic storm, a minor geomagnetic storm at G1. And that brings aurora almost overhead. Now, anything stronger than that is going to push farther south. 44th parallel here. You probably need a K5 or a K6 to see aurora. 43rd parallel. You definitely need a K6 or KP6 given other factors. And at that level, the aurora can push all the way down through the entire state of Michigan down to the 42nd parallel line, which runs just north of the border here, and also through New York, Pennsylvania, the tip of Ohio, and into Illinois and onward. So let's keep diving in a little bit closer here. We've really honed in for the Michigan Aurora Chasers, and you can see exactly what you need on the K index to see northern lights at your latitude. Not sure what your latitude is? Well, I've got a solution for you. All you have to do is go to a search engine and ask, what latitude is my town? So I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to type in my hometown. What latitude is Ann Arbor, Michigan? And it's going to pull up those search results right away for you. So you can see I live at 83.7 degrees west and 42.2 degrees north. So that's pretty far south of the 45th parallel. I am definitely below the 45th parallel, but I'll tell you what, my guidebook will help you regardless of your parallel, especially if you live in the mid latitudes, which is how we refer to these parallels that are right between the equator and the North Pole, right smack in the middle. So to find your parallel or your latitude, just to ask any search engine, it'll pull up the results right away. Now, what about altitude? Well, you can be in the North Pole or you can be very far south of it and close to the equator. And you can also climb a mountain or a hill. That's going to give you an advantage because the aurora is actually a phenomenon that happens at a very high altitude, not just a very high latitude. It's created by the solar wind through a process where these energized particles bounce around in our atmosphere and interact with molecules of oxygen and nitrogen and helium. And that interaction creates the northern lights. So that's happening at a very high altitude. This is actually a photo from NASA. It's available through their NASA Media Library, which is Creative Commons photos open to anyone. And here we're looking at the northern lights from the International Space Station in outer space. So you can see there, we're seeing a lot of aurora. It's very high above the earth. It's happening at a very high altitude, not just a high latitude. How's that play out when you're on the aurora chase? Well, I've got some photos from my chase in the Arctic Circle of Alaska in 2022. And here in this one, I'm actually really, really close to the ground. I set up my iPhone to take a photo from the ground, framing these snow trees in the picture. And then we've got mountains from the Brook Range here in the background. Now, as you can see, because I'm low to the ground and sort of low on a hill in my general elevation relative to everything else, the aurora is high above me, but I can't see that far south on the horizon. I have things blocking my view. I have trees and mountains that are obscuring the view. So here, I'm not as quite a high altitude as I could have been. I've got these beautiful trees, but the aurora is dancing overhead, and then it's sort of hiding down on the horizon line. Now, what happened when I crossed the road and took a photo from higher on the hill? All of a sudden, my high altitude increases my visibility of what I'm able to see. Those dancing pillars from the aurora and columns of the aurora are now visible throughout the entire sky. And I can also see all the swirls and activity that's happening low on the northern horizon. Here are my snow trees again, but you can see it's a much different view. So when in doubt, maybe climb a hill, a nearby watchtower. If you're lucky enough to look out from a lighthouse at night, that's going to give you a better viewpoint, a better vantage point for chasing those northern lights. All right. So we've got latitude, we've got altitude. What about fortitude? What about your attitude when you're out there on the aurora chasing trail? I'll tell you, it's not easy. You're going to be deprived of sleep. You're going to be in the dark. You might hear something go bump in the night that makes you jump and almost lose it. Maybe drop your camera or your tripod. So attitude makes a lot of difference. And almost put attitude in the title of this video because how you behave out there is going to mean everything. Come into it with the right type of thinking and feelings that are going to set you up for success. And that leads me to fortitude, because really it takes a strength of mind to catch these beautiful northern lights. And if you encounter some adversity while you're out there at night and approach it with courage and determination, that fortitude is going to help you come away with a great experience. Now, what's my number one tip? Always plan at least one other exciting thing to do while you're out aurora chasing, because you never know when you'll get completely aced and no one wants to come home empty-handed. So I hope that helps you remember your latitude, your altitude, and to bring fortitude when you head out to chase the northern lights. And as always, good luck on the Aurora chasing trail.